Good evening, and welcome to the Putnam Valley Board of Education meeting of Thursday, February 16th, 2017. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'd just like to start with a resolution to approve the minutes of the business meeting of January 19th, 2017.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. All right, Dr. Wills, we'll go right to our presentations. And should we just make an announcement that we're going to postpone? Our first presentation was a student recognition for Mariana Silva, who's a National Merit finalist, and she was unable to be here today. So in order to give justice to that honor, we're going to pull that off until a day that she can be here. Which then brings us to number 2.
Which would be school start time, and we have some student speakers. Look at this.
Pay attention, Mr. Farr.
Hi, my name is Dora Rippon,
My name is Catherine McNamara.
and we're here to talk about the issues with the potential schedule change.
Okay. So the first is the issues with the time shift. Students will have the same amount of work and they will stay up later no matter what the time change is. The work plus less time is only equivalent to less time for sports and electives. Students like the early end time. 1:50 is a good time to get out instead of getting out at around 2:30, like the middle schoolers do. The traffic jam in the morning is going to be very hectic with the seniors trying to come in and the drop-offs from the middle school and the high school drop-offs. The bus routes will be probably doubled. I know I'm on a little bus and my bus is already full. And I live on a dead-end road that's 2 miles long, so I can't get a bus stop. And only these new buses would increase the tax.
So I have a quote on here from Benjamin Franklin, which is, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." I bolded the phrase early to bed because it is the student's responsibility to go to bed when they're supposed to be able to get up at the time they need to in the morning. So if they decide to stay up late on their phone all night, that's their responsibility, which will cause them to miss first period often. I also have a daily schedule of what my school day looks like. So at 1:50 I get out of school, and I use 10th period to either do homework or go to a club. And this is because I then go to sports afterwards till 5:30, and I take the 5:30 bus home, which gets me home at around 6 o'clock. And I need to reserve about half an hour to eat dinner. And this leaves me about 4 hours to do things like homework, shower, and chores, or anything else I'd like to do for that day. And then 10:30 would be the ideal time to go to sleep to get up in the morning. But as you can see, 4 hours isn't all of that much time, and in order to be able to get all of that stuff done, as well as other things, social activities, or other things I'd like to do with my family that I might want to do in a day. Okay. So we took surveys, we gave out surveys for 161 students that we collected, and 63% said no, they don't want the time to change back or later. And the combination of yes, depends, and I don't care answers that we received got the rest of the 37%. As you can see, we made a graph to the right, and the error bars show the 95% confidence interval. So the combination of all those other three answers, we have a 95% confidence interval that they won't be greater than 45%, which isn't even half of the students, and it's the combination of all those three answers. And as we found that we gave out the surveys to students that they're not well informed on the time shift, they didn't know how late it was going to be. We investigated a little bit to get some of these answers. So before anything, I think you should definitely inform all the students on the matter.
So we have another matter to attend to is the block schedule. High school is not like college. College is not 6 hours every day for 5 days a week. Also, kids with ADD and ADHD will struggle with the 90-minute blocks for C and D days. A routine keeps people organized, and making up work would be much harder to do with this block schedule. And then the electives will help kids distinguish themselves for college applications. I know Dora and I take science research, and that's going to look much better on our college application than taking a skills class. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? I want to thank you for taking the time to stand up here on camera in front of us, and I assume you're representing a number of the students who have asked you to speak for them because they didn't want to stand up here and do all the speaking. This is a decision that both of your issues have taken a lot of time. We have not made a formal decision on either one. And several of your points can also be discussed with best practices. And there will be an opportunity, block schedules is certainly a trend in scheduling. Later start times is a trend in scheduling. Not because everybody woke up and said, let's let the kids go to bed later, but because there's research saying that it's a good idea. But we do value your input. There's still a lot of conversation about this, and we especially appreciate the people need to know exactly what time they're talking about. Unknowns are hard to plan for or get your mind around. So, thank you.
Just a couple of things. I think it would be great tonight, Ms. Intrieri, right after you speak, we'll be talking about the new schedule as part of her presentation on the high school. And there are some changes from the first schedule that had been proposed, with more opportunities for, keeping it's a 9-period day rather than 8. So you would still have the opportunity for the electives. And there is some flexibility in the schedule. It's quite different from the first one you saw. And it does need to be explained once we, have an understanding of it at this level, for the students to understand it, and that will occur. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, have you thought about what it would be like to get a little more sleep at the, in the morning, a little more time, and that time at the end of the day, we're not suggesting that we take away time for you to do the sports and have these options. In fact, we don't think that the actual end of the day would be much different than it is now for you who are involved in sports. In other words, the time that you would finish your practices. Because we do understand that that is a problem for you. If you're going to think about the thing that most concerns you about this, what is that? What is the thing that most concerns you about the change?
Well, my biggest concern is that with all the work I have to do with different activities and the sports, that I just don't want to feel stressed and yeah, then more than I already do.
So you see this change as making you more stressed than you are now in your program.
Because you mentioned that the sports time wouldn't be later, then wouldn't that take time out of 10th period?
It would be different, and we'd have to come up with other ways. We're even thinking of having clubs possibly for those people who want them, if it's a couple of times a week or however you meet. We're thinking of some early time for clubs. So we would have a more flexible day altogether. But not necessarily, you don't go to a club every day. So it would work a little differently. You could make some decisions that way. Some of you mentioned, some of the students I've talked to mentioned going home in between, that they actually go home at 1:50 and then come back. Is that something you see as a frequent occurrence?
I see that from other students, but like we live so far away, like probably the farthest places away from the school, like Roaring Brook and
Are you in Roaring Brook? Yeah.
so we wouldn't do that, but I do see it in some other students.
The other thing that we did note when we were talking about the routes, that in fact the routes will be shorter because of the way we're going to, we were going to configure the routes. Because there'd be more people going on the buses, if you will, the density, the routes would be shorter because we'd have to have more buses, so the routes themselves would be shorter. The actual time getting to school. How much time does it take you to get to school?
40 minutes.
So you go directly pretty much, right?
Well, you're on the
No,
Roaring-
we
you're
have
on the
to
Roaring
loop
Brook.
around Roaring Brook and then go to the school.
40 minutes.
Well, the new schedule will call for 2 buses going around
Yes.
Roaring Brook, so that would be cutting that part of the time in half.
In half, right.
And it would be a shorter route. Plus, the issue with the buses, the routes being smaller as far as locality, would be that because you have middle school and high school on the same bus, more students, they'd fill up faster and then be more express than they are now, where it's pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up. It would be really clumped together. And at this point, not changing many, if any, stops, but you'd fill up faster because you have more students at those stops because you have siblings in other houses. That wouldn't be included if it was just a single run for each building. So that's something to think about.
And I guess what really impresses me is your view of how you structure your lives. It's very impressive that you've structured it this way and that you believe strongly in the responsibility you have for your life and for how your goals and achieving your goals. Our concern sometimes, when we think about this, we think about students who perhaps have different needs in terms of getting to school, on time, having their classes, being able to achieve that. And, a lot of what we think about is, can we make it better for everyone? So we're trying to make it better for everyone.
And I hear that to summarize, I think, Dr. Rose, the greatest concern is that loss of that 40 minutes. The time that gets done from that 1:50 to 2:30. And
Yes.
if we do anything about the start time, we have to figure out how that 40 minutes can be maintained for students, whether for that downtime or extra help time or whatever. But I think we have a lot more conversation and a long budget preparation. I know, Dr. Rose, you often have forums with students. I mean, as we move forward, that's something we can certainly do. But thank you very
Do
much.
more. Yes,
So-
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you should start with the high school.
Yes. So we'll have Ms. Intrieri, the principal of the high school.
Our next agenda item is budget presentations from our middle and high school, but we're going to follow the girls and go right to the high school.
Instead of doing the budget, you want me to just do the schedule first?
Maybe start with the schedule. Yes, that would be great.
It's probably on the...
She's going to show it, but here.
Good.
I know I sent it.
I know, I couldn't open mine.
Pass it down.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the girls for presenting tonight. It's never easy to talk in front of students, talk in front of a group, let alone to come up in front of the Board of Education. So, great job, and thank you for your input. A little bit about the budget process, or about the scheduling process. This started back in November when we started with the Late Start Initiative and looked at the data for the high school, which was about 7,000 lates a year. The high school faculty has wanted to do something with the schedule for a very long time, and so we started to examine in small groups, looking at rotating schedules, dropped schedules, really spending days in discussion with each other, working on different things, looking at Briarcliff's schedule, Fox Lane's schedule, all various schools, New Canaan, how do they do it, how would this work here? Finally, in about January, we talked about the Croton-Harmon schedule, which was a modified block, which has an 8-day schedule. We wouldn't need that 8 varied day schedule. And then the more we met with faculty and worked on it, we made some adjustments to it. And just recently, we had Michael Reddig come, who is the national school scheduler, who worked with us to really fine-tune what we have here now. I would say a couple of key components. If you look on day 1, is a traditional 1 through 9 schedule. Originally, the first schedule we were looking at did have 8 periods, but we know the students do want 9 periods. We don't recommend it, but there are students who do want to take a 1 through 9 schedule, so this makes that available to them. It also helps with room usage. I do just want to note that when the national scheduler here, he's all over the country, in Seattle, and he's in California, and all over New York, and one of the things he emphasized was school schedules across the country for very, very, very competitive schools can go 6 periods a day, 7 periods a day, 8 periods a day, and very rarely, it's only in this area that are they 9 periods, because colleges do not look at, if they look at what your school does, if you only have a 6-period day, that's what they look at. So there are many competitive students from around the nation that do only have, believe it or not, a 6-period day that he talked about. That being said, we did decide to keep the 9-period day, so it was an easier transition for everybody. Day 2 was something the faculty really wanted. We could not do a rotating schedule for a number of reasons, but we have flipped it. So instead of a period 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a 4, 3, 2, 1, and then at the end, it's a 9, 8. So the faculty is very, very happy with that B-day schedule. We also then, for the next day, if you see periods 5, 6, 7, remain 40 minutes no matter what day it is. So that's very, very important for our BOCES students, because under the old schedule, they would have been more isolated and had to have their own lunch and own classes. Keeping the 5, 6, 7 allows BOCES students to come back to school and leave to go to BOCES and still be with the rest of the school community and have regular classes, and it does not isolate them in any way. So we feel that new 5, 6, 7 for the BOCES kids is extremely important. If you look on day 3, now we have the modified block. It's not really 90 minutes. That's talking about, the minutes plus the transition time between classes. So modified block, if you look at the schedule as far as teacher planning, it should be very helpful for teachers in their planning, because day 1 and day 2, they can do shorter activities, maybe some traditional lessons if they need to, but on the block days, they can get their testing out of the way, they can write essays, they could do Socratic seminars, they can do more problem-based learning, things where they need more time, labs for sciences. Many of the science teachers are very happy because they can get, especially those AP sciences, those labs take that long, and so they're very happy about those days. And you'll see on day 3, we have 1, 3, and really, it should be 9. We changed that up on the end there, so it would be odd classes, 1, 3, 9. And then on the last day would be the even ones, which would be 2, 4, 8. And what's great about that is on day 4, they're not writing new lesson plans for these block. It repeats because these are the classes they haven't seen. And that's really good for kids because it means you're not seeing every class every day. So you think that you might have more homework because they're longer periods, but it's not the case because you're dropping those periods on the second day. So you don't see everything. And also because you can get a lot of work done in those time periods, Socratic seminars and the writing, potentially it could mean less homework for you, or that's the goal, to make that time in class more meaningful than having to do it on your own at home. Again, 5, 6, 7, it can be used as single periods for departments that want electives. So each department coordinator was meeting with their department this week to talk about exactly what electives would work well for their classes to fit in those time periods. And those time periods, what gives us great flexibility, can still be blocked. So they can either remain 40 minutes or they can be blocked together to create the double period if needed for sciences or other core classes. So we see a lot of benefits to this. We've talked about it as a faculty. I've put out feedback, let them respond to feedback, answer their questions. And I would say overall, the faculty is very enthusiastic about making a change and trying something. And we've emphasized this is a pilot. We can make adjustments. And the other big difference with this schedule, we've been talking the whole year about community lunch, or a way to help create community in the high school, because right now having 5 lunches, one that starts at 9:20 in the morning, is really not what we think is healthy for kids, or it's not healthy also as a school community to be so divided. So this brings us to 3 lunches a day, and also looking at that community model where you could be spread throughout the building, having lunch, having stations in other areas, and creating a more relaxed atmosphere for students to either go to a club, get extra help, something of that nature. Any questions?
I have a couple. One very simple one. I noticed period 2 is 46 minutes. Is that announcements?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
announcements. And these time periods can be adjusted
Right.
here and there. It's just the initial playing with it.
Okay.
On day 5, say Friday, would that just be day 1 again?
Yes, it'll repeat in
If it's
A
a
through
four-
D.
It's a 4-cycle. Okay.
Now, you talked about the plan had been to fully flipping. So a 9th period would be a first period, and then vice versa originally. But we
Right,
didn't
but
do that.
that wouldn't work, that would be really not helpful at all for our BOCES students, because
Right.
then they would totally miss that class.
Okay.
So BOCES is a major reason why we have done just by afternoon and by morning. And,
So-
and,
right.
and for teacher schedules, it's very difficult to rotate and then ensure that they don't get 5 in a row. So that's why we've kept the periods locked together and just flipped it.
So your periods 8 or 9 are still your later day periods, but it's not always the last period you have.
Right.
Okay.
Can you just go a little bit further into the determination of what's going to end up in 5, 6, 7?
Sure.
And be locked into those as opposed to being something that will float around that could be a block?
So right now, I've asked the departments to go back and talk about things they would like to see as far as sometimes you might have electives. Maybe science research is a class that they would want in 40 minutes. Science hasn't gotten back to me yet. There could be criminalistics they've talked about might be a good class for 40 minutes. English right now, they don't want any electives during that time period. Social studies the same. So the humanities tend to really go for that block period for their classes.
And band.
Very important. Mr. Odell and Dr. Macera, also another key reason why we kept the 5, 6, 7 as 40 minutes. They would like their ensemble groups to meet every day for 40 minutes. So they love how it remains the same 40-minute period within the block. And then they can do their lessons half the period another time. So how will we determine what electives go in there? It's really going to come down to, right now, they're just making their choices, students, as to what they want to take, so we have to look at the numbers. Then we have to see how many sections of each class we need. And then we're really the biggest challenge with this schedule is looking at balancing teacher load to make sure that they don't have too many on a certain day.
And we are, I used to know this number and I knew it like a week ago and I forgot it again. The number of students that are in the high school that are going to BOCES on a regular basis.
75, maybe, about that. I think that's an approximate. I think it's about 35 each for 11th grade, 35 for 12.
And I would assume that how a teacher operates, like let's, for example, period one teacher, how they operate on a 90-minute day is going to be very different from how they operate on a 40-minute day. And the girls mentioned the concern about attention span. I certainly couldn't listen to anyone talk for 90 minutes, although we do it here every other Thursday. But I think, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, I wholeheartedly agree. I actually was taught in the first school in New York State that had block scheduling. So I remember we had a lot of training for that and a lot of preparation that then made me a stronger teacher. So I've talked to the faculty. We're offering the IDE program, which is already in the middle school, as one way to help teachers train and prepare for that. We talked about offering other in-service classes that other teachers can teach or administrators to help support and prepare teachers in their planning for it. Without question, teachers would need professional development and support to know how to restructure classes so that it gave students a variety of activities and they were not just sitting and listening to a teacher-centered lecture.
And if I could just jump in, one of the ways that we're doing that, as you know, is really in our co-teaching models and really expanding those models from trying to use more station teaching and teaming, and so that kids are more active and in smaller groups and rotating groups and stations and teaming and one group on one day and another. So we are trying to address that even now.
It's an excellent point.
If the students could just chime in here.
Sure.
So Erin and I, as part of the student council, we went to Croton Harmon High School last week with Mr. O'Connor, and we talked to a couple of the students there, and just to get their opinions of their schedule, which does include more of a block schedule. And the students, they said that they loved the block schedule. In fact, they preferred those days where the classes were longer over the days where the classes were only 40 minutes. So that was just a little bit of a student opinion.
And we also got the chance to sit in on some of the classes, which were the longer classes, not their shorter ones. So we could see what their regular long classes were like, because we were also worried about the attention span. And I, at least in my class, got the opportunity to talk to some of the students about how they felt about it. And a lot of them said that the teachers would give them breaks every now and then just to rest a little. And it was also really good for group projects because they could get them done in one period instead of breaking it up over the week. So that was good.
And we've been talking a lot, you mentioned IDE, which is a particular model, but the learner active classroom is the new buzzword. There's always a buzzword, and it's the new buzzword, but it's one that's all about the 21st century learning. And we saw the film last year was presented. Kids do more when they're creating it themselves, and I think that does allow for that. But I like that it's not all block, that there is some more traditional times.
I want to thank the students. I was thrilled that you guys went to Croton. Mr. O'Connor said it was a very positive experience, and I think we're going to continue to do that. We've been sending on teachers to a lot of schools this year to get new ideas, and I think we should do the same with students. And we're looking to go to Fox Lane, Bedford High School, and so we'd love to bring students to that as well, and they have a block schedule. So thank you for the input. Any other questions?
Do we want to segue this right into the budget?
Yes,
or?
we could go right into budget. I think we will be moving along with this, and there are some other steps that we have to take, but I think this is, there's been a lot of thorough work on this over the course of the last semester, with a lot of involvement by teachers and opportunities for questions and for feedback.
So to begin our presentation, I'm going to start, we have our little saying up there, empowering students together, but it really is empowering today's students for tomorrow's challenges. And the reason why I included that is because one of our main focuses this year has been to bring the high school team together. I think one of the areas they've been lacking over the past few years is team building. And so we did identify in a faculty meeting our strengths, areas of growth, things that we wanted to work on, and then we also tried to pick a very short vision statement or a mission, something that we could all focus on and kind of rally around. So they came up with several statements and we voted, and so this is the one that we're putting forward, just as another way to unite us. Enrollment, you could see if you really look at the right-hand column under change, we're going to be down about 20 students next year, a little bit lower. However, that doesn't indicate whether we're going to have transfer students in, which we usually do over the summer. We could have anywhere from 10, 15, 20 additional students. So we're remaining very close to the same or static at the high school. I look at it as a very good thing, though, that we are down about 20 students because we are very tight at the high school. We don't have a lot of rooms. Our classes have been high, sometimes 26, 28, 29 students. So this gives us a little bit of breathing rooms. So I'm not unhappy to see a little bit of fluctuation there.
Ms. Intri, I'm just looking at the math. I don't want to call it out, but it's between this year and next year, it looks like 28.
That could be.
Okay.
I'm not going to attest my math skills are. Don't tell Mr. Cohen. One of our big initiatives that we've been working on is social emotional. Myself, along with the teachers, really want to create a family atmosphere at the high school where students are cared for in a number of ways, where, yes, we have a focus on academics and instruction, but then students are looked after in a variety of ways. So we just started our peer mediation training, where about 40 students have been identified to go through conflict resolution skills, and they've been trained by Mark Weiss, and out of Operation Respect. So they've spent 2 days working on that over at the firehouse, and I went over and I was very impressed with the skills they've learned. They're going to be able to use these not just in high school, but in their own lives, with their own friends, and they seem to be really enjoying it. And so we look forward to the opportunity when they can start mediating some small conflicts between students, again, just to strengthen our community. Yale Emotional Learning is going to be a component that's going to be district-wide. But I would say the high school staff is extremely enthusiastic about this. We sent Ms. Noto, Ms. Lombardo, Mr. Worrell, Mr. Odell to this original training, and we're excited about all the different things that this program can offer. And again, Mark Weiss is going to be working with us to help implement that at the high school. Sources of Strength is a program that actually Dr. Wills got the grant for. It's going to begin next year. They're going to come in September and talk to us, and it's a suicide prevention program with peer mentors so that students feel supported throughout the building, and that's a grant, so there'll be no budget implication. Again, we're looking at the lunch periods, reducing them from 5 to now 3, again, to help build that community. Lunchtime is really the time when students, if they're not comfortable in the lunchroom, there's no place for them to go. They can feel isolated, alone, and we think by opening it up throughout the building, letting them be with teachers who are available, again, help to feel more support for them emotionally. We're continuing with our PBIS program, our student recognitions, freshman foundations, and the expansion of the student lounge, which is going very well. And I believe Java City is going in downstairs, so there's going to be coffee and smoothies and after-school snacks, so that, again, it's something that kids can use and don't feel like they have to run home. Our instructional initiatives, so new courses for this year. Mr. DiGregorio is going to teach people's crisis and conflicts in the 20th century. And the social studies electives have been pretty traditional throughout the past few years, law, psychology, sociology. So I thought this was a very creative approach to offer students something different. We're going to have a yearbook class that talks a lot about journalism, business careers, printing, graphing, all those sorts of skills that you would use in magazines and publications. French 4 is going to be the continuation of the French program. Music Theory 2 is going to be a new class that Mr. Odell is going to offer. And then Mr. Kuzma has come up with sports, exercise, and health science. And he's going to teach some of those days with Coach Elsasser. It's going to have a lab period to it, and it's going to be very hands-on, where students can take data and really focus on any interest that they have. So that'll be a very great class in that 90-minute block, because again, students might have to go out to the track and collect data about how fast they're walking around the track. Again, we're still in the process of exploring the International Baccalaureate program. We're in the application phase, and we still would have to look at all the training and the IB coordinator. The IDE, as I mentioned, which has already started in the middle school, so the high school is looking at getting a cohort together, and we are setting up a visitation with Fox Lane High School, because their high school, many teachers are trained in IDE. Another major initiative is to look at the TV studio. We have a phenomenal facility in this building that most schools do not have. The technology in it, though, is very outdated. And right now, we are beginning again to produce some documentaries and movies, and teachers are starting to use it during class, but it's an area that we would like to see expand with film classes, TV studio, and just a number of different ways. The Achievement Center is going very well. We just opened up additional sections, so again, that students can get more support. One thing I want to mention, we're adding a math lab next year. It's not going to be attached to any specific math course, but it's going to be open for any students who need specifically math help. That tends to be the subject area where students need the greatest support. And the problem is that we're getting a lot of students also scheduled into the Achievement Center who want that math support with Mrs. Cefaloni or Mr. Baker, but that's not really the design of the Achievement Center. The Achievement Center is supposed to be more a community atmosphere where those students have a kind of a general education case manager, helping them to be organized, having that additional contact with home, that additional contact with teachers, and so we need to separate that piece out. And then we would continue with the honors option in chemistry.
Would the math lab be something students were scheduled into, or would just be available to them?
Both.
Okay.
So it might be if a student chooses to go into a more rigorous math class and they want additional support and they've maybe struggled, we could say you could be scheduled into the math lab, or it could be drop-in as well, depending on the numbers. We're also working with Mrs. Demain on upgrading the library to a sort of learning commons. So she's investigating other schools that have already made this transition. And we're looking at, again, refurbishing the library so that it is more 21st century, more conducive to flexible grouping and a modern library. Staffing between this year and next year, we were, of course, replacing, which is irreplaceable, Mrs. Cefaloni in math. So we are looking for a math teacher in certification 7 through 12. We're looking for 2 science teachers. That's one to replace one of our teachers from this year, and then an additional one so that we can do some additional electives and have, again, lower class sizes and living environment and some other sections. Social studies will remain the same. English, we're looking at, again, hiring somebody for the Achievement Center and possibly the TV studio together, seeing what we get in our resumes so that we can expand sections in the Achievement Center. Art, music, phys ed, technology, and all remain static or the same. And LOTE, we're looking at sharing a 0.4 with the middle school. And then the administration and support staff, again, remain the same. The one difference is we have hired an additional monitor for this second semester, and that's to help out. As we changed the traffic position last year, we do need somebody regularly to monitor that traffic for a large portion of the morning so that the drop-off does go all the way down to the stop sign and not stop in the middle and back everybody up. So we have hired an additional monitor to help with that. Any questions?
Did I miss the 12-month secretary on the last one there? Was a reduction on that?
We have, yes, we have one secretary retiring, so we do need to replace at the kiosk
You're
someone.
going to replace
But
that?
it'll be 10 months versus 12 months.
I see.
Right, that's going to be the difference. Right now, we have a 12-month person, we would reduce it to 10 months.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The additional staffing you were talking about for the studio, is studio equipment going to be in your budget, or is that going to be in facilities budget, number one? And then number two, I didn't see any additional film courses in the course selection guide, but you're looking to hire somebody for film.
So what we would do, first I have to look at the resumes. I mean, I do have to compliment Mr. Mahoney, who's here. He's doing an outstanding job technically in the TV studio this year. He's helping tremendously with Dr. Macera's class. Students are able to go in, they're learning so much in a variety of ways. So I keep encouraging him to get his teaching certification so that we can have him in there for, teaching TV studio and other classes. At this point, I have to see what I get on the resumes as far as film or what I can do in the TV studio. If I got somebody who was able to do that and didn't need training, I could then develop the courses, and the guidance counselors could call back in students who wanted to take those courses, and we could add it in. I didn't want to put it in the course catalog, not knowing what might come through in the resumes. Film is an interesting area to try to get, because there is no specific certification, so you tend to ask for an English certification, because sometimes that journalism and that film can go hand in hand, and the script writing also goes hand in hand with an English teacher.
I know this year actually students have done some documentaries, which I saw. They were quite remarkable. And I know that Mr. Mahoney has written a whole sort of report on what we could do with our program. So,
and we actually met this week and we talked about some of the technology. So right now we're actually working out with Mr. Bellino. He's looking at his budget, so we're looking at what we can get short term to bring the TV studio up to speed, and then long range, what do we need to budget for to make it technologically advanced. Any other questions?
I guess my other question would be, the schedule impacts the budget in no way other than the additional lunch stuff, correct?
Correct. I believe the lunch is coming out of the cafeteria fund, though.
yes,
is my
we have a
understanding.
cafeteria fund. We're going to create some kiosks, places where students can eat, not necessarily in the cafeteria, where they want to eat. They
Right.
can do things during lunch. That's part of the idea, too, for clubs possibly held during lunch.
We know we need a panini machine.
Yes.
And I don't, it's not in here, but we might very likely need additional monitors for that environment if they're going to be throughout the building.
I have to
It's
look
possible.
at, it depends like on a teacher schedule and what duties happen then, because that also might be able to supplement that. And the fact that it's 3 lunches, of course, reduces the amount of students. So we already have coverage downstairs in the lounge. We have coverage up here. So adding the 3rd one this semester already has helped to alleviate that.
All right.
Anything else?
No, so no further questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving to middle school.
Thank you very much. Yes. Mr. McCarty will present the middle school budget.
That's not on here. That's a bonus. This is not on, right?
It is.
Do I need to
It
refresh?
says middle school athletic.
I mean, there's no budget here.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Travis McCarty. I have the privilege of being the middle school assistant principal, and I'm here this evening to present to you our budget for the 2017-2018 school year. And before we get started, we have quite a few initiatives going on at the middle school, and I will provide more information for you next week when we talk about the school report card. Here I'm going to present numbers, staffing changes, and so forth. So if you take a look at the middle school enrollment, we have a little bit of change over the course of this school year. We're going to go from 542 students to about 551. And you're going to notice that with our 8th grade, it's the largest that we have in the building for next year at around 150. But I'm going to start with grade 5 because we have a little bit of an increase. We have 120 students in the 5th grade this year, and we are increasing to 136 for next year. Our 6th grade decreases by 15 students. We're going from 140 to 125. Our 7th grade, which is currently the largest in the building, will go from 149 down to 140. So it's a decrease of 9. But you're going to notice there's an asterisk because we currently have 141 students. So we're projected next year to have 140. So we're already kind of topping out there for our predictions. And finally, in 8th grade, we currently have 133 students, and we are increasing to projected 150. But again, right now, we're at 149. So overall, for the entire middle school, we have an increase of around 9 students. Starting with grade 5 and our core program overview, we are moving from 2 partner teams to 3 partner teams. And this will actually be an increase from 5 to 6 sections. And this is because we see an increase of 16 students next year. So we're going to actually have 3 partner teams. 2 of those core teams will be ELA, Social Studies, Math, and Science. And 1 of those core teams will be ELA, Social Studies, Math, Science with a special educator. So we see here our average class size is at 24 this year. Next year we'll see a slight decrease down to 22.6. And you're going to see that as being one of our common themes for next year, trying to reduce class size and increase contact time for our teachers. So with our grade 5 Encore program, you're going to notice here we have band and chorus, physical education, and we have 5 Encore offerings: art, digital citizenship, general music, health, and technology. And with 5 sections, we do see a class size of around 27.2. Our grade 6 core program, we're going to stick with a departmentalized model as we had this year, but with a decrease in class size, we're going to move from 6 sections to 5 sections. Those will be English Language Arts, math, reading, science, and social studies. We do see a slight increase in class size from 23.3 this year to 25 next year. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about that number 25 because a couple of years ago, when I was actually teaching in the 6th grade, we saw an increase in that class size and we had to add an additional section. So we're going to keep our eye on that number 25 if it does increase from here through September. With our grade 6 Encore program, very similar to the 5th grade, we have band and chorus, physical education, 5 Encore offerings, identical to the 5th grade, art, digital citizenship, general music, health, and technology. So at 5 sections, we're looking at 25 students in each one of those classes. Grade 7 program overview. So you're going to notice here, we do have a couple of changes to the 7th grade next year. We're proposing an English class with a lab. And this would increase, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the benefits of moving to that situation. And we're going to go from a 1.6 to a 2.0 English teacher with an increase of 0.4. And it's actually going to reduce our class size from 18.6 to around 17.5. Math, we don't see a change in personnel, but we do see a decrease in class size from 24.8 to 23.3. Similar in science, 24.8 to 23.3. And in social studies, you're going to notice we're going to add a 0.2. And this year's class size was around 29.8. And we're very happy to see a reduction down to 23.3. Similar situation with Spanish. Our social studies and Spanish classes historically have been large, and this is going to allow us to decrease from 29.8 to 23.3 with an additional 0.2. So our total, we are adding 0.8 to the 7th grade, and I will discuss that English with a lab in a slide in a couple minutes. So our grade 7 encore program. You're going to notice we have band and chorus, physical education as well, and we have 6 encore offerings. We have art, digital citizenship, a new one for next year, family and consumer sciences, general music, health and technology. And that family and consumer sciences actually replaces our science research course. So the 6 sections brings our class sizes down to 23.3. Moving along to our 8th grade program overview, you're going to see we have our English class with a lab. And again, I'll explain that in a couple minutes. So we go from a 1.2 to a 2.0 with an increase of 0.8. We reduce class size from 22 to 18.8. Please keep in mind, next year our 8th grade is the largest in our building at around 150 students. So this will help reduce class size. Math, we don't see a change. You do see a slight increase in class size to 25. Science 8 with our Earth Science Lab. I have a question mark here. You'll notice for our full-time employee, there's not going to be any change in personnel, but we want to do a great job this year in providing a parent information night about the rigors of our Earth Science course. It is a Regents course that is a 9th grade level course, and we would like our teachers to help present to families and students because it is the first opportunity for a Regents course to go on students' transcripts, and the more educated our families and our students are regarding the course, the better our students will do in the program. We're also looking at, in Science 8, what's going to be called integrated science. So we have the next generation science standards, which we have personnel who have been working really hard at understanding these new standards and transitioning their curriculum to meet those needs. And that would be complementing the earth science. So the earth science would be an option. The rest of the population could have the choice to choose integrated science. With social studies, we have an increase from 1.0 to 1.2. Again, this drops our class size from 26 to 25 for next year with an additional 0.2. And in Spanish, the same situation with a 1.0 to a 1.2. Okay, and as I'm speaking, I'm thinking back to our 7th grade Spanish program, and I did forget to mention, I can go back real quick. If you look right here, so in Spanish we have a 1.0 with a 29.8 class size down to a 23.3, we are offering Mandarin Chinese next year, which we have had a very high interest in through a survey that we sent out to all present 6th grade families. So this will also help to reduce class sizes in our Spanish class. We will have an informational night where parents can come and learn more about the Mandarin Chinese program, and that would build throughout the year. So we would start it in 7th grade. Based on our turnout, that grade would also, take it the following year in 8th grade, and then we would start the program again in 7th grade and carry on up through the high school. Depending on turnout, this could be a very rigorous program, but very beneficial in the world market, as we know today. So I'm going to go back to 8th grade, and you'll see this year Spanish is at 26.6, down to 25 with an additional 0.2. So we have an increase of a 1.2 in 8th grade. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our additional 1.0 ELA teacher. We've noticed that historically in the elementary school, students get 90 minutes of ELA every day. And then when students come to 5th grade, we offer them an hour. So 90 minutes to an hour, a little bit of a decrease in time. And then in 6th grade, we have 80 minutes. By the time students get to 7th and 8th grade, they have 40 minutes of ELA a day. So when we met with Michael Rettig, he gave us great feedback, and he said, this is unique. I haven't seen a situation where we have such great contact time in ELA, and then by the time students get in 7th and 8th grade, there's a reduction. So what we hope to add for next year is 4 sections for each ELA teacher, 2 in 7th grade and 2 in 8th grade, with a lab. And this would rotate on a 4-day rotation, similar to the high school with the A day, B day, C day, and D day. And then it would start over again on the 5th day. And you're going to see that this gives our ELA teachers an additional 0.25, so a whole quarter addition over the course of the entire year. And we hope that this allows them to conference with students. It allows them to work on writing more so than they would see in a 40-minute period. They would see that class on a 4-day rotation. And this will help our contact time. So our goal this year is to decrease class sizes and increase contact time with our students. And this is a great benefit to our ELA program in 7th and 8th grade. So with our grade 8 Encore program, very similar again to our 7th grade. We have band and chorus, physical education with 6 Encore offerings: art, digital citizenship, family and consumer sciences, health, journalism, and technology. Even with 6 sections, we still have a class size of 25. Again, I keep saying this 8th grade is our largest, and the high school is going to be happy when they come over. It will help increase the population of the high school. So our regular education staffing, everything that I just talked about, we actually see an increase of a 2.0 total. So just to review quickly, our 5th grade is growing. So we have an additional teacher in 5th grade. Our 6th grade is shrinking, so 1 less teacher. 7th grade, we have an increase of 0.8. 8th grade, we have an increase of 1.2. 2.0 AIS for a total of 26.8. So a slight increase. Encore staffing. The only change here you're going to notice is in music, with band, chorus, and general music. With the 6th grade, with the additional section, we had teachers who took a part of their day and they taught a course for 6th grade students. With the loss of a section in 6th grade, we actually had a music person who is going to go back and teach band. Administration and support, no changes here. We have one principal, one assistant principal, a 12-month secretary, two 12-month secretaries, I apologize, a social worker, a guidance counselor, a school nurse, one teacher aide, and 6 part-time cafeteria monitors for a total of 14. Okay, any questions?
The Mandarin Chinese, where is that going to fit in the day, in the schedule? Has that been thought about yet, where that's going to fit in?
We have. We've actually talked a little bit about the technology that's going to be involved because it's a synchronous program where somebody from Orange Ulster BOCES would be teaching the class off-site, and we would need a teaching assistant to be in the class present with those students. So we would have to work collaboratively with the high school. We're thinking about using the studio over here at the high school with the technology. We haven't ironed that all out yet, but it may fit in the 40-minute schedule, I believe periods 5, 6, and 7 at the high school. So we have to talk more about the technology needed to support that program. But I will tell you, based on our survey out to 6th grade families, and I know it's in its early stages, we had 44 families interested in this program. And this is prior to us having an informational night, prior to us having the people from Orange Ulster BOCES visit our 6th grade students. It's very exciting.
So if we were to have 50 students that'd be interested in it, we'd have to have at least 2 or 3 sections, correct?
That is correct. I think when they come to present, this is a very rigorous program. So it'll be interesting to see the interest, whether or not it increases or it decreases. We speculated, and you don't always know how that turns out, but we were hoping for maybe 20 students to be a part of the program.
And that was kind of the max of what they were talking about for a section.
Yes, they were.
But it would have relieved the Spanish, which is what we wanted, relieve
Yes.
those sections.
And that's my next question. It would supplant Spanish for students, it wouldn't be an addition.
Correct. And what it would do is, if you notice, we proposed a 1.2. So if we do have a large amount of Mandarin students, we wouldn't propose that 0.2. It would help to change class size.
So I have just one question about encores. The fifth grade, I believe you said, had 5 choices or 5 offerings. 5th and 6th, I believe, and 7th
Yes.
and 8th had 6. That's not choices. They go through all of those offerings. So it's about 7 weeks each in
It is.
7th and 8th grade, and about 8 weeks each.
I believe the way that we figured it out is with around 5 sections. They have about 37 days in an encore, which rotates, so they get them all throughout the year. And then in 7th and 8th grade, it's about 30 days.
I have 2 questions. How much of the change in teaching staff is a change in additional personnel, and how many are just additional periods for existing teachers?
So as of right now, it's a 1.0 ELA teacher, which could be configured in the 7th and 8th grade for the English and a lab. And in the 5th grade, because we're getting that increase in number of approximately 16 right now, we would need an additional 1.0 general education teacher and a special ed teacher. So 3.
And those English labs would all be taught by the English teachers that exist already?
Well, the way that it works is you teach 4 sections of your class, and then you see those same students every 4th day. So it's really beneficial to the teacher. They're not seeing other students within the
Right.
building.
They can just have continuity.
They're seeing their own students on that 4-day rotation.
And then to address, I mean, I know at least Ralph and I had these conversations about the additional use of teaching assistants. If we get those classes in that 26, 27, 28 world, if we're not going to be able to break, number one, for space reasons, but also if we just can't do it, to be implementing more teaching assistants into those classrooms, which benefits the students and being able to have more one-on-one with the teacher directly, number one, and number two, benefits the district by having a teaching assistant learning how we're teaching in our district for possible future employment. So is that on the radars, keeping an eye for those opportunities where we can't split, and crassly a teaching assistant does not cost as much as a teacher, and so we could use multiple teaching assistants to assist in areas that we couldn't do any other way.
That is correct. I've actually had the pleasure of observing a few teaching assistants within our classrooms this year, and the way that they collaborate with the teacher and work with the students is very refreshing. Through my observations, you wouldn't even know who technically the teacher is because they shared responsibilities and they trusted one another, and it was really impressive to observe. So when our class sizes do increase, we would offer that opportunity, and we do have classes in our middle school right now, such as Spanish, physical education, where those TAs have been very helpful with the program.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
Thank you. Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Now we have our athletic director, Mr. Burrow.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so before we get into the actual budget presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about where we are with winter sports and some of the highlights that we have going on. We have cheerleading that will be at the White Plains High School this Saturday. Now, last year was the very first sectional tournament for cheerleading, being a brand new actual sport rather than a club, and we came home with the sectional title. It's going to be very, very close again this year, and I know the coaches and the girls are very hopeful. If they pull off a tight routine, they could very well repeat as sectional champions. League champion girls basketball will play Edgemont at home.
You're stealing the students' thunder, by the way.
I know.
Just so you know. You're stealing their thunder.
You got to understand, when I saw Fran today, she said, you better bring your cheerleading outfit because, it's a budget presentation night. So I'll try to leave you something. We gotta communicate a little better. So we have the girls at home versus Edgemont at 12 noon this Saturday. League champion boys basketball will play at Bronxville this Saturday at 4:30. So Saturday's quite the busy day. Ice hockey, we have a merger with Lakeland Panis and Putnam Valley for ice hockey. We have very few students, but two in particular will be starting this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. versus Mayapack at the Brewster Ice Arena. So that is senior Kyle Carroll, he's a center, and then younger brother Cam Carroll, freshman, is the goalie there. It's always nice when they actually send in information, because we don't get a lot of information on some of these mergers. So the parents and the kids do like to hear about them. If they send it in, we do like to sing the praises. For wrestling, probably one of our most successful programs here at the high school at this point in the school's history. We will be sending 6 athletes to the state tournament. We have section title winners Mike Bruno, Satoshi Abe, Jared Eliopoulos, Rob Velichko, who I see on our front sign out front, also just achieved his Eagle Scout, quite the busy young man. Constantine George, and then we have sectional runner-up Kyle Sams, who was a sectional winner last year, got an invite all to Albany. That will take place on February 24th and 25th. So you'll see in some of your agenda items later an approval for that trip coming up. Hopefully we'll have another one for cheerleading. We also have a merger for Lakeland, with Lakeland rather, for gymnastics. And the sectionals for gymnastics were held on February 9th, and we had Caitlin Pellegrino win the Division I all-around title, and she led the team to a combined squad, to a D1 title at Odyssey Gymnastics Center in Mayapack, continuing an undefeated regular season. Very impressive. Okay. Just take off the cheerleading outfit, and we'll get to our budget presentation.
How are you going to pay for all that? That's what you're talking about now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the athletic department objectives: to provide opportunities for our student athletes to build good character, responsibility, self-discipline, work ethic, and respect for themselves and for others. We want to supply equipment and facilities that are safe for our student athletes, to be responsible to the community fiscally, to provide a positive community-centered experience. So we have some numbers up here for participation. We have last year's numbers by gender, if appropriate, this year's numbers, and then we have an average from 2004 to present. Okay, that's the reason being that's when we had actually all of these in place. The school opened in 2001. Okay, so you see a slight increase there for football, which is a little bit against the trend in many of the school districts in our area. That's a positive change for us. We had a very strong coaching staff in place this year with Coach Elsasser at the reins of the varsity program, and former head coach Matt Mello taking over the JV football program. And we have a very, very strong community program in place that supports them all the way through what would be a modified level, so all the way through the middle school level. And the good thing that we've been working on with many of these newer coaches and the coaches that are still in place is working with some of these community programs to try to streamline as much as possible some of the things that they're teaching and working on in the community programs, so that they transfer right into our middle school and high school programs, hopefully leading to success for the teams. Volleyball numbers were slightly increased. We had 11 seniors on the varsity team this year, so we held a few more students than we traditionally would on that team, just so that some of the younger students had some experience at the varsity level before just going in cold. Nobody with any experience there. Some of the teams like volleyball, basketball, things like that, you'll see in winter sports, the numbers are pretty stagnant just because of the nature of how many people are on the court and things like that. Okay. Field hockey, you'll see increased in the varsity level. That we were very, very close to actually running a JV team. We're very hopeful that we will be able to run a JV team this next coming year. The problem when you're running into about 26, which you think, okay, on paper you might be able to run it. You always have injuries, and we did, and we would have ended up dropping this team mid-season, which is, it's just not good practice to do for a variety of reasons, especially all the other districts counting on us to actually complete their schedules as well. So we're hopeful to add that back in. Boys soccer seems pretty solid. Girls soccer as well is, you'll see on the averages over there, is up a little bit over the past years. So the teams seem to be coming together quite nicely and sustaining themselves year after year now, whereas they were definitely on that cusp of 11, 12, 13 per season, which when you're fielding 11 at a time, that's a lot. There's no breaks. The swimming merger with Mayapack, you'll see up at the top there, we had 11 Mayapack participants. All the girls, I went to the dinner, and all the girls really gelled together as a team. They had a very enjoyable experience. Mayapack girls came over. They were very strong swimmers. The Putnam Valley team, we actually had some go into the sectional tournament in relays and things of that nature, whereas last year, before the merger, sometimes we would be at meets where we wouldn't even be able to fill a card. We wouldn't even be able to actually compete in each race. So they had quite a bit of success this year, winning meets, and the camaraderie of having double the amount of kids out there. Cross country, both the girls and the boys won their league title this year. We talked about that a little bit a few months ago. The numbers seem pretty solid. The coaching staff is very good at this point. We have Jerry Zupan, and then we brought in AJ McConville. He is a teacher and coach also at Haldane. These guys really structure the season very well. I tease them that when I come back in my next life, I'm going to be a cross-country coach, because they look like they're just sitting there and the kids are out running around all the time. They just sit there. But they're actually the entire time planning and charting and tapering the kids' workouts, and they really do put a lot of time and effort. They have a lot of experience, so we're lucky to have them on board. And obviously the results are speaking for themselves. Cheerleading is for the purposes of cheering at football. In the fall, it's a non-competitive at that point, where it is competitive in the winter season. So we had a combined team this year for JV and varsity because the numbers were low. So you see the totals from last year are slightly up, and definitely up over the average. Winter, again, basketball teams are typically right around the same number each year. The modified programs are quite high. That can be a challenge at times, depending on how you devise your rotation. If you're having a blue squad, white squad, we've done some of that in some of the teams there, trying to make sure that they all make it through, have their experience, and then we sustain the JV and varsity programs. We do see a pretty big drop in most of our modified programs transferring into the JV varsity level. That's typical. Wrestling is combined, so 13 and 7 is about the same we had last year, 20. Very strong showing this year at sectionals. It was very, very exciting. We did not win the team title by a few points, and that was due to just the lack of numbers overall for the program. So every single wrestler that we put out there to compete in sectionals did very well, made it to day 2, and actually placed on the podium, but we only had 12, 14, whereas Pleasantville, who ended up winning, has a team of 25 to 30. So even though we took many more titles, over double, they get a lot of points from 4th and 5th places. So we are working with the wrestling coach and our new varsity boys lacrosse coach, as well as Coach Ryan Alsasser, to try to collectively get more of the boys that are not able to compete on our basketball team actually to come out and compete in our wrestling team. Okay. Winter cheer. The numbers for, let's see, oh, that's male. So the numbers for varsity cheer were very good. We are competing in large squad, small school. There's a lot of details that I, try to understand about how you compete and how you have to get the points translated onto the floor. I won't even begin to decipher how that works at this point, but we decided to go large school because we had X number of actual tumblers, so we thought we could compete better at that level. So far, it's working out very nicely. We had 7 JV cheerleaders this year, and they did very well in the competitions that they did attend, and modified did show a strong improvement from the beginning of the year where they really came in with no experience, many of them. Winter track is a merger with Haldane. It was very solid. They did not have anyone advance up to the state level, but they had many of the students with PRs. And one of the good things about that merger with Haldane for the winter is it does sustain itself into the spring season, which is our primary track season here. Gymnastics, we spoke about that earlier. Our merger is successful. They went undefeated. About the same in the total, just a slight increase there. Obviously, we don't have the numbers coming in for this spring. We are hopeful to run modified baseball again. We have Dan Turner will be taking over that team. Typically, when you have an in-house coach, there is usually a strong number to go out for that, so we're very hopeful. That's why you see the large number for boys modified lacrosse. A few of the students that did not have the opportunity for modified baseball did transfer over, and they did participate in a sport, which is good. Softball seems pretty strong. For the first time in many years, we were able to run JV last year with 13. It was tight, but we were able to do it. It looks like we will be able to, for the second year, be able to run that again. Girls lacrosse is pretty solid. Golf, we're very low. We're trying to get more golfers to participate. When you have that low number, you actually can't score a full round. You need to put up more students than that, so we're actively trying to seek out more golfers. We even served refreshments at the meeting. I don't know if it helped. Tried. Track is very strong. It's a very large number for spring track. And then last year we did have 6 athletes go to Peekskill to compete over there for tennis, and some of them did quite well. So here just a little visual of the participation numbers that we went over, 3 years running, and then the average. So we're slightly up, doing well there. And scholar athlete. So again, as always, these numbers are reflective of really last year coming up into this point of this year. So 2 of those seasons are last year's totals because we haven't gotten this year's totals. Now, one thing that's important to note is this was completely changed by New York State at this point from last season. So whereas we used to be able to, with a mathematical, just a little work, figure out how many students we could get up onto the roster of required, let's say 11 as an example, and then you could leave students that had a 90 off of that required 11 and still get them pins and to be as part of this scholar athlete team. So you could have somewhere, you could achieve the team with kids even in the 90s if you had people in the in the 80s rather, if you had people in the high 90s. Okay, so you could average that out, so it equaled 90, and then if you just had a 90 already, you would just be included, okay? Totally different now. Now, it is, the idea being that it's simpler for everybody involved, and that if you have an 8th grader playing up, so on and so forth, their curriculum is not as rigorous as a high school, and so on and so forth. So the new calculation is just, is 75% of your team in the 90s or not? That is the qualifier for team. We did have one, and that was field hockey this season. And then everyone that achieved the 90 actually does get their own individual pin. So we still had quite a few students achieve it, but you'll see the numbers will be slightly different as we move forward from this point because the qualification has changed. So the budget includes all of transportation expenses to and from contests and scrimmages, practices, home, off-campus, off-sites, such as Copper Beach, things of that nature. We have about 71 coaches overall. I didn't include, I took off the volunteer coaches from last year. Last year it appeared we had about 79 coaches. So if you're sitting there comparing both we went down a little, but that's just because they don't really reflect on the budget itself. So I took those out of there. The athletic support with chaperones, trainer, EMTs, which we've been able to reduce with the trainer, clock operators, scoreboard operators, things of that nature, security, and BOCES game officials. The trainer, I can't tell you how much positive feedback we've had about the athletic trainer at this point. She, not only is she individually just tremendous as a person and doing her job, but just the relief it gives to the school, the department, the coaches, everyone involved, the parents, many, many thankful parents. The salaries within the department, which is the Director of Physical Education, Athletics, and Health, and the Secretary in the office, BOCES dues, New York State Public High School Athletic Association dues. That allows us to actually compete within sectionals and so on and so forth. And general equipment, materials, and supplies to outfit all of our teams, uniforms, reconditioning, and repair. And the only increases this year that we will see is salaries per the PVFT contract. Everything else will remain the same. Any questions?
Very involved children.
Yes.
Any questions?
I have a question. If we were to decide to pilot the later start, what budget impact is there on athletics?
Good question. This is somewhat of a guess, somewhat of a prediction, okay? But if we have to increase monitoring of students before we transfer them over to the elementary school for practices, that would be an increase that would be reflected somewhere. We could incur late charges through the bus company, I'm sorry, through the officials if we show up late. Yeah. Trying to think off the top of my head other direct budgetary impacts. Yeah, it would be a lot of time shifting and things of that nature, but I don't think that there would be a lot of budgetary impacts. At least nothing that's striking me right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering, though, we have so many athletes that train. Is there any sort of regular updating that goes on with that weight room, or is that still the same equipment or whatever?
Good question. We have recently taken on the task of reflooring. So I'm getting quotes to refloor the weight room with a rubberized material, more traditional weight room flooring. That money was money that was accumulated through a donation over a few years. So it should have minimal impact, if any impact, to the taxpayer whatsoever. There are some additions that we've built into the physical education budget. So we had a cable machine that we couldn't get replacement cables or pulleys that were cracked, things of that nature. We removed them at this point, and we are looking to replace those with more modern equipment that is not only better physiologically and but also the space that it takes up. So we have a lot of nice things that are in there already, and the people that are using that weight room regularly are pretty impressed with what we do have, but there are steps that we're going to be incrementally increasing and trading out old equipment. It does get worn down very, very quickly when you have students on it all the time.
Yeah.
We always try to buy the top commercial grade equipment so that it lasts, and we maintain it as best as possible.
Good.
Okay,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, yep. We're going to move into our report section, but before we do, I want to ask the board and announce to the public that I'm proposing a change in order of the agenda. Our student representatives will give their reports next. We'll find out if there's a PTA report. Then I'm going to ask to suspend the report section, and do number 1 of new business. A great deal of the audience, I believe, is here for number 1. Some of them have to go to bed early, and not just their mothers, their the children. So we're going to, is everybody okay with
Yes.
doing that and then going back
Yes.
to the superintendent report and then resuming new business? I'll work you all through it. Girls, you're next.
Okay. So the Science National Honor Society and Mu Alpha Theta, which is the Math Honor Society, all had their induction ceremonies, and the Tri-M Music Honor Society is going to have their induction ceremony next week. So a big congratulations to all of the new inductees.
We would also like to congratulate 2 students. First, Mariana Silva, who is the National Merit Scholarship finalist. She's only the 3rd PVHS recipient in school history. So this is obviously a fantastic achievement, and we're looking forward to seeing Mariana here at a future board meeting to be more formally congratulated. A second student is Robbie Valechko, who recently earned his Eagle Award in Boy Scouts, which is the highest award a Boy Scout can achieve. Congratulations to both of them.
So last Tuesday, students had a special assembly to attend the Right to Dream assembly on the civil rights movement. This was for the student body to acknowledge and celebrate Black History Month.
In the music program, we have an upcoming Great Works concert where the wind ensemble, concert chorus, and mixed choir will all be collaborating to perform in one concert, as well as a couple of other faculty members. And there will be different selections of music, including the notable piece Carmina Burana. We expect this concert to be fantastic, and we hope to see many of you there on March 1st.
So last week, student council representatives, including Sarah and I, visited Croton Harmon High School. We learned a great deal about some of the programs and schedule that they have in their school, and we're looking forward to possibly adopting some of these in our school. We want to thank Mr. O'Connor and the board for giving us the opportunity to attend this trip.
The Make a Difference Club, under the direction of Mrs. Cefaloni, wrote Valentine cards of appreciation to all of the teachers and administrators in the district. This was termed a Random Act of Kindness for Random Acts of Kindness Week, and follows with the message of Rachel's Challenge, an assembly on kindness sponsored by the Make a Difference Club this year. Thank you, Make a Difference Club.
So very recently, the 9th, 10th, and 11th grades each had their course selection presentation, which the students found very helpful because most of them didn't realize how many different classes and electives that they had the opportunity to take. Specifically, the freshmen really appreciated this.
And finally, the new mascot has been revealed that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks during the board meetings. It was a huge hit among all of the students, and everybody loved its bright color and upbeat personality.
Mrs. Cefaloni's geometry class listened to the architect Joelle Greenberg's plans for the proposed Putnam Valley Recreation Center. This was a very enriching experience where students were able to apply mathematics to real-world situations.
The school musical, Billy Elliot, is coming soon. It will be playing from March 31st until April 2nd, so once again, we hope to see many of you there.
Students in Miss Furlong's class worked to redesign the courtyard outside of the new senior junior lounge. They also designed a sculpture to be placed within the courtyard, and students worked with Arcs for Kids, which is an architectural group that works with schools on authentic projects.
PVHS has also started a new peer mediation program to help students learn the skills to resolve their own conflicts. Mark Weiss from Operation Respect is conducting the training, and the program is under the direction of Mr. Worrell from the high school.
Last night, the Authentic Science Research students hosted their annual freshman interest meeting. There was a great turnout, and the program seems to be growing very big. Juniors and seniors in the program also presented their current research in preparation for their upcoming WestF competition.
Next week, on Wednesday, students that were nominated by their teacher will be receiving their Aspire Award. So a big congratulations to them, and I hope to report more on it next board meeting.
Also next week, our school skiing club will be going on a trip to Thunder Ridge, which they're very excited for.
And finally, a couple of seniors have had their honor of being able to display some of their art at the Katona Art Museum of Art. Daphne Adams, Matthew Jenkins, Christopher Crawford, Ryan Usai, Ben Donnelly, Kayla Cabelli, and Caitlin Milliker all have art displayed at the exhibit, which is open until March 5th.
Thank you.
Very busy. Thank you very much, girls. Is there any representative from the PTA or PTSA? Okay. So we're going to jump over public comment for now. We're going to jump to new business. And I'm going to ask Ms. Farrar for you to read number 1.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Travis McCarty from his tenured elementary education teaching position and from his position of middle school assistant principal effective close of business June 30, 2017, in accordance with his letter of resignation dated February 9, 2017, document number 16117. And be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Travis McCarty from his positions as elementary teacher and middle school assistant principal effective close of business on June 30, 2017, in accordance with his letter of resignation dated February 9th, 2017, document number 16117, and be it further resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints Travis McCarty, who holds professional school building leader certification, to the position of middle school principal in the middle school principal tenure area to serve a 4-year probationary term effective July 1st, 2017 through close of business on June 30th, 2021, an annual salary of $140,000 effective July 1st, 2017.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to say that I am delighted to be able to recommend to the board the appointment of Mr. McCarty to this position. When I first arrived here at Putnam Valley, one of my first visitors to my office was Mr. McCarty, who was a member of the FSLA program, the Future School Leaders Program, at BOCES, which is a Bank Street school program, very well thought of program, and he was accompanied by his mentor, who is one of the finest of, was a very fine superintendent, and Mr. Chambers, John Chambers, is again highly respected, and he introduced really Travis to me as one of his best students, and a student that he recommended highly for administrative and leadership work. And so from the start here, I got to know Mr. McCarty as an intern, really, an administrative intern in our office. And what was so impressive to me was his diligence, his constancy, his willingness to take on the work and to do it thoroughly and to complete it. At that time, there were no positions available, but this was to obtain his leadership position, and he took it very, very seriously. So I got to know Mr. McCarty, not in this instance of applying for a position, but as a student who was eager to do very, very well, and I could see that everything he did, he wanted to do well in. And then, of course, as an assistant, as the interim assistant principal, and then as the assistant principal, again, watching a leader whose classroom itself was a place that was an exciting place for students, I was able to see how Mr. McCarty related to students, related to his colleagues, how he demonstrated leadership in every aspect of his work. I am very impressed with, and by the way, this was an extensive hiring process that we went through in this appointment, in the appointment itself. which led to tonight. I mean, we had a screening of over 100 applicants. We had a screening interviews after that of 7 applicants, and then 3 finalists who were interviewed by a large committee representing parents and teachers and administrators in the district and board members. So Mr. McCarty was able to be seen and heard, and there was an opportunity to really understand why he is being appointed this evening. What I see in Mr. McCarty, first of all, he has very strong beliefs about respecting all students. He took part in a diversity program this last summer with Mr. Hallisey and myself, and actually Mrs. Calhoun from over at the elementary school, and we were looking at aspects of how we create an environment where all of our students, all of our staff are treated with respect and dignity. And it was an exceptionally active program. There was a lot of some things that made people, uncomfortable, which was part of this process. How do you, really understand yourself and your own biases? And again, his passion about this was evident. I feel that Mr. McCarty has demonstrated the characteristics needed to succeed in our district, and his wonderful way with his colleagues is another aspect of his strength. I see how Mr. McCarty is seen by the teachers in the school. They see him as someone who goes out of his office regularly, walks into classrooms, goes to the gym to shoot hoops with the students during a break or during the phys ed time, during the recess. He is an active principal who has a vision for school success. Most recently, Mr. Hallisey gave Mr. McCarty the opportunity to develop the School to Watch application with the groups, with staff members at the school. This was a major initiative, a major project, and this was accomplished, and it was accomplished very well. And then, of course, we had the visit from School to Watch. But the teachers worked well with Mr. McCarty on this project as a team. So again, we have had many opportunities to see Mr. McCarty in the role of a leader, in the role of someone who will bring a vision and bring his special qualities of goodness, kindness, intelligence, willingness to persevere, willingness to persist to his work here at the school. We take this very seriously. We take principalships and leadership in this school district very seriously. And I am extremely proud to be working with a remarkable team of leaders. And I think that our students benefit greatly from this. All of our students at Putnam Valley benefit from the kind of leadership. We just heard from our students here of the kinds of programs that we are involving ourselves in, that the students are taking part in. This is because we have leaders who are eager to bring vision, to bring this vision of all students. All students will benefit, all students will succeed, and finding ways to make that happen. So again, I am very proud to bring someone who's been here for a long time in Putnam Valley, who's known and has demonstrated over and over again his commitment to this school district. And I think we're very fortunate to have Travis McCarty. Congratulations.
And I know we have to vote. I just want to add one quick comment, I promise. I attended orientation as a new employee with Mr. McCarty. And I remember that year, what I remember is his eagerness, his enthusiasm, his passion, and most importantly, his urgency. He would come to me as a school social worker about students who were struggling as if we had to fix this today and now. And I have not seen a change in that sense of urgency, enthusiasm, and passion in the 13 years since. So I want to add my congratulations. And is anybody else have any comments, or are we ready for the all in favor part? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was fun. Now we have to jump back.
Yeah, let me get my stuff together.
Anybody with bedtimes can feel free.
Is that me?
Is that you, Mr. Hamilton? Okay, and what we're waiting is we're going to move back into the superintendent's report, which is going to include a review of the calendar as well as our district goals.
I'd like to make a couple of other comments on other matters that I want to bring to the board's attention and the public's attention first. I hope that everybody will join me in congratulating our own exceptional Deputy Pitt, who was here earlier. I don't know if she's still here. No, she's not. But sometime when you come into the high school the next few weeks or when our students see her, I would like us to congratulate her. She has been here for 6 years at the high school, middle school campus, and she will complete this year, fortunately, because she is an admirable addition to our school, and we rely upon her as part of our safety plan here. But she was recently, just recently, promoted to the county sheriff's office as an investigator. She's the first female to have achieved this honor. And she has always wanted to be an investigator. This is a job that requires analysis, thought, and kind of a deep thinking about different cases. And she loves this work. And she has been looking forward to this. And we're so pleased to be able to support her in having her dream fulfilled. We will miss her greatly. And we will have an opportunity to be involved in bringing in the next SRO here, our school resource officer. Sergeant Cargane has assured us that we will be involved in that process. But we're very proud of Deputy Pitt. I also wanted to mention a very special event that took place last week. It was the Makerspace celebration at the elementary school. This is a program that came to us because we have some very enthusiastic teachers. We have Mrs. Broas, we have Jen Bruno, who, when we decided to, with the help of Mr. Bellino, refashion one of the classrooms into a makerspace, they took this on as a labor of love, and we use it every day. Teachers are going in there with their classes to create and to use imagination and to solve problems. And so it's a very exciting opportunity. And they have a club now. And the club, there are 15 students. This first semester they had 15, and they will have another group. There was a group on a waiting list, and another group will join them in the spring. And we had a celebration of the student work. And we saw bridges and different types of structures that students had created to solve a problem. And so they're learning the beginning phases of engineering, and this is part of the STEM initiative that we have in our district, and that is, of course, a statewide initiative. But it's very exciting to see students engaged in this way. I also wanted to comment on the Middle School Tiger Times, which is a wonderful club that now exists. Now there's a Tiger Times club, but there's also the journalism class doing their Tiger Times, and students are learning about interviewing, they're learning how to write articles on a variety of subjects. I also want to thank Larry Cobb, who runs our highway supervisor in Putnam Valley. And you, of course, have seen how we have struggled to have school on certain days, and how we have to deal with roads that are difficult to maintain. And really working with Mr. Bellino and with Mr. Koenig and really taking pride in Putnam Valley's highway system and in making sure that we can get to school. I really have to thank Larry Cobb. It's not that way in every town. So I just want to make sure that we don't forget that on these days when I announce there'll be a 2-hour delay or a 3-hour delay, that it's because the only reason we can have school is that we have people out there in the roads early to get that done. I also wanted to comment that our graduation rate this year is stellar, and it has improved significantly. That was for 2016. We had a graduation rate of 96%. That's the highest we've had. It was 89% for a long time. The year before last, it was 93%, and last year it was 96%. So a lot of hard work goes into encouraging students to stay in school, some of our students to stay in school. And we have a new RTI program that's very strong, that looks at students regularly and monitors them. But we did very, very well in the rankings in our graduation rate. Another project I want to talk about is an early dismissal day that I would like to just let folks know about. We're planning on March 17th. We do this every once in a while. We have a professional development day in the afternoon because we don't have very many professional development days in the district. So we're looking at March 17th for that professional development day, and we're looking at inviting community members to join us, as we've done in the past, to address certain areas that we feel we'd like to bring the community together to discuss, in terms of how we relate to one another on difficult issues. We're bringing in, we're going to have some digital citizenship training. We're going to have Operation Respect come in, and some other community circle work where we're going to talk about how to have respectful conversations about difficult issues. And we're hoping that we'll have community people there. We're hoping to have some students there, teachers there, and Miss Entrieri and I will be facilitating it. So there'll be a number of choices for people, and we're hoping to have this community circle on that day as well. And Facing History, a program on Facing History as well, as part of this process. So we'll be letting the community know shortly, but I wanted to inform about the date. And we also sent out a notice about testing, and you may have noticed the letter about the differences in the state testing now, the changes that have been made, which make, we have addressed, the state has addressed many of the issues that were of concern to people in the community in the past. For example, these are no longer tied to evaluations, they're shorter. Parents can see the test. We've had parents come in and take advantage of this opportunity to come in and take a look at how their children actually responded to various questions, so they could actually see what their students are learning, what they need to know, how they can improve, and so on. So I wanted to make sure I talked about those items before I started on goals. And I'm not going to go through every one of these goals because it will be very lengthy. It will be here a long time. But they will be posted on our website. But just a few of the things that we have talked about. The first area of the goals is communications, and we have been working on the mentoring program here as part of our communications process to assist new teachers coming in, and really we're trying to rewrite, actually Ms. Intrieri and Mr. Odell are rewriting the mentoring handbook. And we think we need to make this a more comprehensive and rigorous process, especially since we're going to be seeing many more probationary teachers come into the district. When you have probationary teachers in numbers, as we will be having, we had a number this year, we had 6 or so. Next year we will have probably 12 to 15 because we have 7 retirements of our teachers, and we will have some additional staff. So the probationary teacher is your legacy for the future. That's what you leave, not just 10 years, but 20 years, 30 years down the road. So when you're developing your talent and you're developing your teachers, it's extremely important to have a really solid mentoring process. So that's one of the items that we've been working on. We've also had co-teaching training as well. So Mrs. Doherty has brought in a wonderful team to work with our teachers on co-teaching and how to set up small groups in the classroom, do station teaching, much more active learning in the classroom. And Ms. Mistretta has set up a classroom visitation process for our non-tenured teachers as well, so they can go in and where the administrator sees a strength in a particular teacher, having the non-tenured teachers work in that way. So we've done some things along those lines to enhance communications among staff members. That was the goal. At the high school, we see tremendous work by our librarian on tech breakfasts, where new ideas are shared, where they have breakouts and they have discussions. So there's a lot of work with we're working hard to get more collaboration in a formal way, a formal and informal way in our schools. We also, if you noticed, we had a newsletter this year that was a hard copy that was distributed around the district, but also we sent a postcard out to try to get people to sign up to get the newsletters by email. We made a full court press to try to have more print and yet use the email more effectively, because it's expensive to get the newsletters out, to mail them to every home, and then you don't know whether someone is really there because it goes to the resident, and they could be people who are not even home. So we are expanding the way we reach people, and we've tried it. We had one that just came out, one newsletter just a few months ago. We have another one coming right out now that is going to, it's pre-budget on the kinds of things that are going on in the district now. We also sent out hard copy report cards. So that was another of our efforts to meet this goal of more communication, more print communication. And all of our schools sent out hard copy report cards. We also have worked a lot with our app. We've noticed that we've had an enormous uptick in the number of people using our app. I think it's up to almost 1,000 people who have the app, and we're encouraging more and more of that. I did that at the town meeting, the town hall last evening, where Ms. Figueroa and I attended and talked about not only what was happening in school, but trying to get people to get involved in our app and in our email and our newsletters. We've done a lot of work on curriculum instruction. I would say that all of the goals that we had, we've been working on, such as the reading process, the literacy process, with data that has been developed by Mrs. Kahn. She has an extensive website. We have introduced a number of new programs in reading and vocabulary, such as Worldly Wise, a number of these programs to build the skills that we see through the data that our students need. And there was a one book, one school in the middle school where they read The Bystander. They're going to look at another book now that they're reading together. So focus has been on teaching the standards in all the K-8 classrooms, and Mrs. Kahn actually developed special books for the teachers so they could hang those standards up when they are doing their work, so that, in the classroom, so students see, they have immediate connection. What is the standard we're working on and learning now? And if you look at Mrs. Kahn's website on wikispace.com, reading, you can see the work that she has done to produce learning materials for anybody who goes to that site. And she also is teaching a course right now on the vocabulary and how to teach vocabulary. We're also been involved in the Google Classroom project. So this is a very extensive technology initiative where all of our teachers have been trained in Google Classroom, and we are now going to be going to Gmail in our schools. So everyone will have, after this weekend, everyone will be on Gmail. So we keep our same email address, but it's a Gmail process. And the teachers are learning all of the ways that you can use Gmail. I never realized myself how many ways you could use Gmail to organize yourself effectively. So this has been a big training problem. And students, you're using Google Classroom in some of your classrooms, and the Google Forms, and sharing documents. So this all connects to the active classroom. It connects to how we are trying to collaborate. So these are some of the things we've been working on. This has been a very extensive training process. Trying to find some other ones that I want to comment on. Just talked about the testing protocol. The work of the K instructional coaches. Next board meeting, the 23rd, they're going to be presenting. They're going to talk about what they actually did. So Mr. Coleman and Ms. Kahn will be presenting. It's the same night as we have our report card presentations. And I think you're going to be very interested to see how much has been accomplished with this program. So I'm trying to move it along, but as you know, we have been exploring. The Later Start was here. We have been doing extensive work on that, as you know, throughout the year. Same thing with the scheduling. That has been part of what we've been doing. Fiscally, the fiscal goals, I'll actually wait, I think, until Jill is here. She can go over those with you. I think that would be wise. And the same thing with some of the other areas. But I will say that a tremendous amount of effort has gone into fiscal planning. And I know we saw Ms. Figueroa's presentation on that, and it was extremely effective. Human resources, I don't know if you'd like to talk about what you have.
I have my presentation next week, so I'll incorporate it.
That's perfect. Okay. I don't want to take up more time, but you know, a lot of work has gone into, for example, creating the draft, the bus runs for a potential later start. So a lot of work's been done in transportation. The EPC, I should mention that, even though I'm sure Mr. Bellino will be talking about that in his operations, but that's on target, and the board had asked for a curriculum to be developed along with the energy performance contract. That's in process. I've met with the teachers who are going to be going to a summer institute on this, and they will be building that curriculum. So I don't know if the board members have any questions on what we discussed, but athletics, I know that we have the academic eligibility process, face-to-face meetings with each student athlete weekly. This was Mr. Burrow in his goals. Update, they help to make the process personalized. And there have been accommodation and adjustments and monitoring of personal nature help to ensure no one falls through the cracks. And Mr. Burrow stated that he has seen increasing effort as the teachers have reported that the monitoring is working as intended. And then we have the family ID, which has been implemented. There are amazing changes that have taken place. Family ID makes the whole process, it expedites the whole sign-in process, the registration process for athletics each year. All of this has been accomplished just in this first half of the year. So you will see this posted on the website, and you'll be able to see the update, the status update on all the goals in the district. Does anyone have any specific questions?
I have three quick questions. I don't know when we'll see it. I'm assuming it's going to be early spring or very soon. Conversation about cohort analysis on Achieve 3000, so we know how students that went through Achieve 3000 last year, what their bump was to this year so far, and when they've been taking their process.
Actually, when Mrs. Kahn presents next week, I'll ask her to include analysis of the Achieve. I know she's going to do the benchmark assessment to show us how that's working, but I'll ask her to include Achieve as well.
And again, we got a sports report for the current season. I'm wondering, we had talked at one point about getting a clubs report.
Yes.
That, you know, this would seem to be mid part of the year or near the end of the year at some point, have that part of the formal presentation.
Mr. O'Connor is going to work on a club report. Okay.
And then the last one, I forgot to ask Brian on this, was the number of students that going through the academic eligibility process.
So these students are split between Mr. O'Connor and myself, depending on where they fall within our programs. So the first group that I had was about 9 students. By the end of the quarter that we ran that, still essentially a pilot on it, was there were only 1 student that was still failing, so would still remain on, which was pretty impressive. And then we had 1 student that didn't meet the requirements as far as returning each week, presenting the forms that they had been doing their due diligence, meeting with the teacher and working with the teacher, so on and so forth. So really, I mean, it's tough to say. It's so new, but it seemed like out of the gate it worked very, very well. Some of the students were really happy that somebody was taking a personal interest in the whole, in them being successful. So that has been an added bonus for me. I don't get to interact directly with a lot of students all the time just because of the nature of the work, but that's been a very positive.
And are they seeing it as incentive as opposed to penalty for getting back on the field?
For example, one student that Dr. Wills mentioned in particular, she advocated for a slight change in accommodation. So we were able to make that happen very quickly. You know, other students, you develop a relationship. You're coming in, you're meeting every week. So, you know, they don't see it so much as a punishment. It's just a check-in, how you doing? Are you getting the help you need? And so on and so forth. And for the most part, when they have that success and they show their, you know, people are recognizing that they're putting that increased effort in, it's a positive thing. The whole point when Chris and I really worked on developing this was that we wanted the carrot to be out there as a motivator, and if they're continuing to work and doing what they need to be doing, even if they're still struggling in certain classes and haven't achieved the pass rate yet, they're still able to participate. So we tried to build it in such a way that it was a positive for the kid moving forward. And we talk, the first time they come in, I say, look, this isn't a punishment, you know, and we go through the whole thing. It's new for them, it's new for the teachers. The teachers are just learning how to fill it out so that it's productive for all parties involved, and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Good question.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. When we switch over to the Gmail account, will that allow us to share documents outside of the district?
I don't know the answer to that.
So for science research, you should be able to
Yes.
already,
Okay.
because there's 2 different ways I know that you can do that.
Yeah.
You can just let someone from the university, or those particular students in science research can get that access. So I'm hoping that you can already do that. We definitely will be able to share it usually in what they call it, the garden.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside of it, not science research, I don't think so yet.
But you can ask if you're in science research, we make accommodations for your needs. And if you come to see Mike Lee, Mr. Lee, in our office, he can help you to make the changes that you need to make sure that you can share outside, because with their mentors, Mr. Mahoney too, with the Google, and being able to share documents outside with Google, outside of the school, with the Gmail. Okay.
Well, if I remember correctly from the technology committee meeting, was students are getting converted next week, they're getting converted at the beginning of the year, is that correct?
No, everyone's going over Saturday night.
Okay.
For Saturday morning at 2 a.m. Right now, the district has a policy of the walled gardens, so students cannot check out outside the district. However, if the district wants to change that policy, we certainly make those modifications.
Yeah. Because we've done that for science research in the past. We've had modifications for them so they can share with their
Right, because the question,
mentors and so on.
the question would have been similar to My Big Campus or
Yes.
parents getting into Google Classroom where, because it's an open document, there's lots of different student work going on. You would see, there'd be privacy issues with outside people seeing it. So, but that, if you can put little walls around other parts. So, okay. Thank you.
But that means everybody has to remember their Google password. After 2 a.m., I won't be able to get into my email on Saturday. Uh-oh. Oh, that would be terrible.
You should share your password with a couple of trusted people.
Okay.
Just send a text to Mike, he'll take care of you.
Okay. All right, so now we'll look at the calendar. This is a mystery this year. There are 2 possible weeks that could be exchanged, and we like to go with the BOCES calendar. So in BOCES right now, half of the schools are looking at 1 week, and half of the schools are looking at the other. So it's very, we're unsure which will be the BOCES, actual BOCES calendar, and that's the one we like to use. We like to use their week, because then our students get full benefit. So this is what we call version A, and there's really nothing that's challenging about this calendar except for whether you would have the spring break. Well, first of all, in the February, oops, I can't see it.
February's down below, that's all.
It's just hard to see it. February, we have 2 days. They may have 3 at BOCES. We kept it at 2. And if you look at April break, we would start on the 29th, Thursday the 29th, and run through the Friday. So Sunday, the 1st of April is Easter Sunday. And so this would run through that week in April. That's one of the calendars. The other calendar, so you can see the rest of the calendar, there's nothing really mysterious about it. It's just the usual days. If you look at the other calendar, though, the week that they have suggested to take for spring break is the week that starts actually March 24th, that's the Saturday, or March 26th is the Monday, and that's the week off, and then going through Monday the 2nd. So you can see, yeah.
So the only difference between these two is an extra day, the day would swap out of that May 25th
Yes.
date
Right.
for one version and not be there for the other.
Exactly. So, I mean, from my perspective, both of them, either of them would work. The issue is going to be what happens with BOCES. I don't know. I told them at BOCES that, we'll be the tiebreaker if they need one, because I don't think there's anything here that's that difficult for us to. I'll tell you why. If we had a full week in February, I would be very opposed to having the March week, because it's hardly any time between. But because we have only 2 days in February, that March break is fine, would be fine for us.
The argument for version A over version C, I don't know where version B is, but the argument for version A over version C would be you have additional time for snow days to take away, because you might get snow right after that in the first week of April, and you wouldn't have anything to take away other than it'd be something else you'd have an issue with. If we
Right.
use them all, that would be the only argument I would see. But other than that, it seems either one works.
Yes. And because we're taking those just 2 days in February, we do have a lot more of a sort of barricade, you know, with regard to snow days. We have more days available.
So am I
Okay.
reading, there would be a proposed Friday, May 25th off?
Yes,
Okay,
because you're only getting 6 days instead of the 7.
right.
The
for
one model
the
had the
one.
7 days in the
Okay,
March, April break.
got it.
So if you want to think about it and hold off until I can get more information from BOCES, I guess that's the best we can do, as long as you don't have a really strong preference. If you have a strong preference, let me know, and I will let BOCES know where we are with that. Which do you prefer?
I personally don't think they have a tremendous impact
I
either
think
way.
you're right on with the matching to the BOCES calendar, so our buses align with the students
Yeah.
who are going to BOCES, et cetera.
That's what I feel.
So,
Okay, so
It doesn't matter
I've told them
either way.
that, and we'll go along with that.
I do like having that May 25th Friday as a get rid of it, both as a nice day off if we don't have snow days, but as
Yeah.
a get rid of it if we do
Right.
have too many snow days. So. And we have a meeting next Thursday.
Yes.
Because we're off.
I don't know if they'll know at BOCES until March.
We probably should.
Now, I remember in the past, scheduling couldn't happen unless we approved a calendar, is that correct? That's what, I remember Sam telling us that they needed a calendar to do,
Well, for the start of the school
for
year.
the start of the
and all
school
of
year
that.
and for the special ed day and all that stuff. You needed that, or you don't need that?
For which one? For the?
For the calendar, and having the calendar
meeting
set, you
and-
need that to
yes.
set everything
Yeah,
up.
no, it's okay for right now. We can go in now and change it because of all the changes that IEP Direct made, we're okay.
Okay.
We
can set it
should know
and-
by
Yeah,
the
that
first
was-
week in March. I'm trying to find out, because basically for BOCES, here's how they figure it. What they do is they look at the number of students they get across all the districts, and they will choose a calendar which accommodates more than half the students, the majority. So I said, use us as your tiebreaker.
But it's likely we won't hear anything next week because some of the schools will have all week off
I
next
know.
week. So
But
it wouldn't be until
We
after that.
may know something, because I'm going to be calling BOCES and seeing what they're getting, because they keep getting calendars from different.
For us, often if students, who have specialized programs, if we're not on the same BOCES calendar, we end up doing bus runs anyway for particular kids because, their program runs through, those weeks. So obviously for us, it is important to align our schedules with BOCES.
I feel it's very.
But we will do special bus runs if we
Right.
have to.
On those days.
But we prefer, to keep it the same. And again, the dates used to be so important to us and it's still preferable, but because of the new merger with Frontline and IEP Direct,
Yes.
the dates we can just enter those dates at a later time. Thank you for thinking of that.
Okey doke.
That was painless.
It was painless. So now, I've lost track of where we are. I'd like to open it up to public contribution on items, absolutely, thus far. And that's on items thus far today.
Hello, how are you today? I'm Teresa Rippon, for some of you that don't know me. I'm Dora's mom. I just wanted to comment and ask a couple of questions on the change in schedule to back her up a little bit. And just so you know, we live up in Roaring Brook. I'm probably the last person that wants to get up at 5:50 in the morning to get them off to school. But we do, because we live farther and it's an early schedule. Dora's probably sleeping out in the hallway now, in fact. But I wanted to comment on a couple of things that I thought were just important to make sure, and you may have put thought into this already. Some of the things I understand is those larger or those longer periods for group and team type activities. I like the midday lunch. I think that's much better than having lunch all day long, which I think is detrimental sometimes. Some of the things, though, that were a concern for me, what the biggest one I'll mention first, actually, and that is that I noticed you had a 4-day calendar. Does that mean every Monday is going to be different?
I'll let.
So most schools run on either an AP schedule or AG, some schools are even H, so it's a 4-day rotation.
So what I thought, do I have to lean into this or no? You can hear me?
So traditionally, high schools do not set a letter day to that.
Right.
Monday.
I understand the AB schedule, right? That's been around for quite some time. My opinion, this is my opinion. My opinion is that you take a whole high school and you put it on a 4-day schedule, and you have days that are so different now, right? You're running long periods, short periods, and then you're going to make every day different so that it's continually changing. Now you're not just every other day is the same, but every Monday to every day is going to be different, and they're going to be running on this ABCD schedule, actually, I guess you could call it. Just my opinion that that's not a great organizational learning experience for them. Even when you go off to college, you may have longer periods and such, but you actually get more organized in the way that most classes are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. There's a little bit more structure to it, and that inconsistency.
So maybe the students, I don't know whether you talked about the students at Croton, they actually run an A through H days, 8-day schedule that's completely different every day. And maybe you heard some of their comments.
I had a question about that too, and thank you for bringing that up, because I had a question, Erin. When you questioned those students, how many students did you question, and did you know what kind of a schedule those particular students had? For instance, one of my other concerns was the type of students who I know you probably are too, where you're trying to fit in so much. You're an athlete, you're doing science research, etc. It's demanding, and then you're losing the skills or a break, any kind of break or relief during the day for them to catch up or just take a time out. Good, I'm sorry.
So I got to sit in on an AP US history class. So it was one of the classes that I'm currently taking now, and I fill up my schedule. So one of my concerns was that we wouldn't have the 9 periods, which we do, which I'm kind of happy with now. But they also said it was a class about like 25 students, I want to say. I could be wrong. But they said in the long run, they rathered have the block schedule than go back to the old schedule. And their time, like their resting time, they took for the longer days with the longer periods, they would, in between classes, where we have a 5-minute break to get to class, they would have a longer break in between so that they had time to relax a little before they go to the next class.
That's something. That seems kind of short, but I don't know if that's the same as having time to do homework or recalibrate, what you have to do. But again, you asked one class. Is that what it was? Is that who you?
Well, I asked one class and she asked another, but we also met with like their student council and different groups with different teachers.
And I think in their school, it's an A through H or G schedule, and I think what they were able to do with the schedule, they were able to incorporate a lot of extracurricular activities into the schedule in some ways. So they included student government into the schedule, and they included other programs that facilitated communication from the student body to representatives and then eventually administration. So by reorganizing the schedule, I think, and adding new programs and building them into the schedule, which maybe we could do a little bit farther into the future in Putnam Valley, I think the new schedule would be beneficial towards having more flexible schedule as well.
Yeah. I could see that, and I appreciate that, so thank you for that. I would just, the one thing that really, biggest concern, again, just to repeat it, is I think that ABCD just my opinion.
Well, I wanted to, let me jump in for 1 second, that the magic word that was used earlier was pilot. And having been in a school that had a schedule change, that I would say 90% of the faculty were concerned about it, and then the schedule went in place, and 100% of the faculty cannot believe they ever were concerned about it. That it was so universally, and it was also a 4-day, and it was
No, I
flipping
understand.
this and that. So I think we have to kind of trust that we've done a lot of research. We've talked about the students went to one school, they visited my school, they visited schools throughout the area, and that a lot of best practices were put in place. And if it doesn't work, pilots mean tweaking.
Okay. And again, selfishly, I have a sophomore and junior, right? So the timing is critical for them in case the pilot doesn't work. I appreciate it. It sounds like you did put a lot of work into it, and I just wanted to also thank you for putting the guard in place at the athletic hall, and also kudos to the highway department also, because we've seen a huge change, by the way, in Roaring Brook for snow cleanup with Larry Cobb. So anyway, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Do we have any other comments? Then let's move back into new business, and we'll go with number 2 and go right to Mr. Smith. We will not change the order, Mr. Gillum. We'll go right to Mr. Smith with number 2.
Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Jennifer Hendrick to a 6-month probationary appointment effective February 10th, 2017 through August 10th, 2017 as a school monitor at the middle school on step 1 of the CSEA salary schedule.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Number 3.
Resolved on the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education appoint Rosemary, and I apologize, Pasay?
Paese, I believe it is, Paese.
Paisy to a 4-year probationary term as a teaching assistant commencing February 13th, 2017 and terminating on February 13th, 2021 in the teaching assistant tenure area at an annual compensation of the amount of $32,800, step 11 of the CSEA salary schedule, prorated and in accordance to the PVCSD policy 9250. Ms. Paisy holds a teaching assistant level 1 certification.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education appoints Maria Belenich to a 4-year probationary term as a teaching assistant commencing on February 22nd, 2017 and terminating on February 22nd, 2021 in the teaching assistant tenure area at an annual compensation in the amount of $32,800, step 11 of the CSEA salary schedule, prorated in accordance with the PVCSD policy 9250. Ms. Belenich holds teaching assistant level 1 certification.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5.
Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation of Eric Meyer from his position of ESOL teacher in the district effective June 30th, 2017, as per document number 166/17, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 6.
Resolved to approve and authorize the superintendent of schools to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the PVFT to address compensation for chaperoning school trips as per document 162/17, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7.
Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints Linda Cefaloni, a full-time teacher, to a .2 math assignment, High School Achievement Center, a 6th assignment, effective February 13th, 2017, for the remainder of 2016-17 school year, with compensation in accordance to the PVFT contract prorated.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 8, sorry.
Whereas the Board of Education of the Putnam Valley Central School District has been elected by its residents to determine policy and approve programming for the students of the district within the confines of both federal and state statutes governing education. And whereas the Board of Education is committed to the provision of quality education focused on cognitive, social, emotional, and physical growth for all students, and whereas the Board of Education demands that all of our students receive this education regardless of socioeconomic status, ability, background, race, or gender, creating the confidence to go forth and serve their community and country at large. And whereas the Board of Education believes that traditional public education has been the hallmark of success for our students locally and nationally, contributing to many of the successes of our country. And whereas the Board of Education also is committed to the success of all students, including those of our students with physical and mental disabilities, and the promise to all students to provide an adequate, equitable, sustainable, and stable learning environment. And whereas the Board of Education has serious misgivings about the favoring by any federal or state government of school voucher programs, school choice programs, or charter schools which threaten the provision of free and appropriate public education for all students through a traditional public school system. And whereas the Board of Education equally believes that any school system that receives any state or federal funding or incentives must abide by the same federal and state statutes governing traditional public schools already established or to be established so as to ensure public faith in their operation and existence. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Putnam Valley Central School District hereby demands that the Federal Department of Education supports the above principles in theory and practice, that is, to support an educational system that will permit all students to maximize their education experience in the public school environment.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Let's move on to the consent agenda.
Resolved to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 14, as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
We're accepting a donation from the Swensons for monies for the musical practice pads. We're approving a job description for a new position for the Director of Learning and Innovative Educational Opportunities. This person will provide leadership and help mentor our teachers and develop global networks and a lot of things that you heard about tonight. We're approving an agreement with a security firm to provide security for our athletic events. We're starting the International Baccalaureate Program application process. We're approving additional hours for speech therapists to assist a new student who has these needs. We're approving additions to the substitute tutor list. Oops. I just lost my summary. I'm sorry, just give me a second.
You're getting there, you're close.
We're approving a health and welfare contract with the Yorktown School District for 7 public Putnam Valley students who attend non-public schools in their district, where Yorktown supplies health and health benefits. We're approving a high school peer mediation program facilitator. We're approving a chaperone course for teachers and staff to accompany students from 3 different clubs to a Broadway show. We're approving a stipend for the middle school drama production for 2 faculty members who will supply the music for it. We're approving chaperones for the elementary school maker club for the spring. We're approving additional hours for staff members to cover classes for a teacher who is out on bereavement leave and illness. And finally, we're approving an overnight trip to Albany for the wrestling team, which you just recently heard about.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to open it up again to public contribution on any topic. Okay. So then at this point, I'd like resolve to convene an executive session for 1 matter of collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, Taylor Law, 5 matters made exempt under federal law, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, and 12 matters of the employment histories of 12 particular persons, after which time no further business will be conducted.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone.